It's Tuesday, it is!
Hey everyone, it's Mimi and Weezus.
Hey guys, what's good?
Today we're gonna do an episode on Rex Heuermann and the Gilgo Beach serial killings. And they're pretty interesting and they're pretty intense. So I'm gonna start with just what the Gilgo Beach killings are in the first place. I'm probably saying Gilgo wrong. It's probably some weird thing. And
it's like Gilgo or something.
And everyone's gonna correct me on it later, like always in the comments. So it's whatever. I don't really care. But they were a series of murders spanning from like the early 1990s until 2011. That's what we think, anyways. Allegedly, till 2011, because we really don't know any big facts yet.
See, or at any moment, you know, what if the serial killer went back and undug like some bodies, like, you know, stuff like that?
Yeah, or we just haven't found half of them.
Ooh.
You know, you never know.
Yeah.
So many of the victims' remains that were found over the period of time were found between 2010 and 2011. And that was during a police search along Ocean Parkway near remote beach town of Gilgo, right? And the search was prompted by the disappearance of this girl named Shannon Gilbert, who, like a lot of the other known victims, had advertised to be an escort through Craigslist.
Yeah, that's where they be, bro. Mm-hmm. Go to Craigslist escorts. You find what you're looking for.
Yeah, and so that's what, especially back then too. Like I was gonna say back now. Back then it was way easier than it is like today because there has to be code words and stuff. You know, back then I feel like you could just post.
Yeah, like DTL, dude.
Yeah. Anyways, so the perpetrator is known as either, you know, the Gilgo Beach killer, Long Island serial killer, the Manorville butcher, or the Craigslist ripper. But what only thing I've really heard him called is honestly Rex Heuermann or the Gilgo Beach killer.
Nothing special, dude.
Yeah.
We're trying to take away his importance. He's just a random guy named Rex Heuermann, dude.
Yeah,
not important.
Just Rex, bro. So the remains of 4 victims are designated what we now call the Gilgo 4. And that's what, if you want to do research on the case, you can look up the Gilgo 4 and it'll pull up all these people's names, right? They were all found within a quarter mile of each other near Gilgo Beach in December 2010. 6 more sets of remains were found in March and April 2011 in Suffolk County and Nassau County. And police believe that the latter sets of remains predate the 4 bodies found in December 2010. Because, okay guys, so it's going to get weird. So I'm going to read a lot from just like the internet because there's so much with this case that's weird. And keep in mind, this case has yet to go to trial. So the trial was scheduled for September this year, 2024, but it has now been postponed until October of this year. So it's still supposed to happen 2024, but this guy has been charged, but he has not been sentenced or anything yet. Yeah, so we'll see what happens. Hopefully his lawyer doesn't find some weird loophole or anything.
Doesn't pull OJ's lawyer, dude.
Yeah, literally. So, Gilbert's remains, they were found a year after the remains of the Gilgo 4, right?
Yeah.
And they were about 9, maybe 10 miles from where the other 10 sets of remains were found. So there's been a lot of remains found in this case. That's the weird part. And then the Gilgo 4 are the main ones that, like, triggered this whole thing. So,
and just so you guys know that these 4 to 5, we'll say 6 bodies in total, right?
Yeah.
Were all found in similar manner. They were all strangled, and they all had like a brown, burlap sack over their head.
And they were basically like, what did they call it? They were tied up, and there's a specific name for it in murder stuff. So I'll remember it at some point during the episode. So as of June 6, 2024, Rex. He was an architect, by the way, which does have something to do with their case when they go to court. He was a resident on Long Island, has been charged with the murders of 6 women. Each of the Gilgo 4 victims, Megan Waterman, Melissa Bartholomew, Amber Costello, Maureen Brainard Barnes, as well as Jessica Taylor and Sandra Costilla. So Jessica and Sandra, they are not part of the Gilgo 4, only the first 4 were. So let's talk about when the bodies were discovered at this point. So I have both a timeline of dating way back into the 90s, but I'm going to kind of start with what Wikipedia tells us as far as the police investigation go on the body discovery. So back when Shannon Gilbert went missing, like I said, they were searching for her when they found all this other stuff. She's a 24-year-old. She disappeared in the area back in May 2010 after fleeing from one of her clients' houses. Keep in mind, she was also a sex worker, right?
Something weird that happened during this case, too, was right when, let's say, a couple hours before she went missing, there was a 911 call. And she was saying, like, there's someone after me. There's someone, like, after me. And it you hear two other people's voices in the video, and it's her, basically her clients, two people she was with. And in the video, she just doesn't sound, or in the phone call, it doesn't sound straight of mind. Like, it sounds like she's panicking. It sounds like she has, like, crazy anxiety. Like, I need to get out of here. And you hear her, like, leave the house of the client. Like, the client's telling her to leave as well.
Well, and so the 911 call he's talking about was not just, like, a small, like, brief call and hang up. It was 23 minutes long to 911. And she was saying, like he said, like, they're trying... She literally... And it's quoted from the 911 call. She said, they are trying to kill me. Not he is, but she said they are trying to kill me.
So are you saying maybe, just maybe, Rex Heuermann could have had an accomplice?
Maybe. I don't know. They haven't said anything about it in all of the pretrial stuff. But she did say in the 911 call, they're trying to kill me. So a month after her disappearance, the police department's Missing Persons Bureau asked Officer John Malia to search for Gilbert with his trained cadaver dog, a German Shepherd named Blue. Over the course of the summer of 2010, he had no success searching for her where she had last been seen. So Malia had made an attempt at a search on December 11th, 2010, staying close to the shoulder of the parkway at the time. The officer based his choice of search area on FBI data indicating that dumped bodies are frequently found close to roadways. So there was a ton of thick vegetation, a little layer of snow, all that stuff. Well, good old Blue here, he hit a scent, dude.
Ooh.
Yeah. So the cadaver dog was like, this is sus. And, well, he tracked down a skeleton wrapped in a burlap sack, just like Jesus said.
Oh, my God.
But, keep in mind, the remains, those weren't Sarah's, dude. They weren't. They were Melissa Bartholomew's.
And so they were okay. So in the search of looking for, was it Gilbert, right?
Yeah.
Shannon, right?
Shannon. Oh, I said Sarah, but yeah, I meant Shannon.
In the search to look for Shannon, they ended up finding Melissa's body.
It is Shannon, right? Let me look.
Shannon Gilbert, right?
Okay, I was like, where is it? Okay.
No, I wrote that name too.
I was gonna start having a little panic attack. I'm like, oh god. Yeah. So then they find Melissa's body in the search for Shannon.
Oh man.
So then, dude, not only was it Melissa, but the police discovered 3 additional bodies while doing their search for further evidence. The bodies of the 4 victims were Maureen, Melissa, Megan, and Amber. So they were found about 500 feet apart from each other, dude. So that's not that far, you know what I mean?
That's more like the serial killer being like, I know a perfect spot, and then being like, I know a perfect spot 3 times.
Yeah, and then he just kept going back like, dude, I know the perfect spot for this.
It's like, bro, you can see the dirt's moved over there. He's like, oh yeah, that was last time.
Yeah, that was from last time, so I'll do 500 feet over here. So then in March 2011, partial remains of Jessica Taylor were found along Ocean Parkway. 8 years earlier, in 2003, other parts of Taylor's remains were found in Manorville. And remember I told you at the beginning he was called the Manorville Killer or something like that?
Yeah.
So the next month, in April 2011, police discovered 3 additional sets of remains, an unidentified female toddler, an unidentified Asian person, and so I know that sounds like I'm being rude, but that's literally what the article says. So.
And there was also, if you look up this person from the Gilbert, was it Beach Murders? It's just a black and white sketch drawing because they don't have any photos of them.
Yeah, they don't. And then a person named Valerie Mack, partial remains of whom, like those of Jessica Taylor, had been found in Manorville years earlier in November 2000. That's crazy, right?
Yeah. 2
more bodies were found. Karen Vergata, whose partial remains had previously been found on Fire Island in 1996, and an unidentified woman with the distinctive tattoo of peaches, who was later found to be the mother of the unidentified toddler. And these people are all being found in the same spot, but in different places, other parts of their remains were found. Isn't that weird?
So it was like he he was dismembering them, right, and then putting them in random spots.
Yeah, isn't that? But like he always would go back to some of the same spots because they're finding them in those same places, right? So on May 9th, 2011, police speculated that because of similarities in the cases, Valerie Mack, who was still unidentified at that time, and Jessica Taylor may have been murdered by a second separate killer. Right? On November 29th, 2011...
It was just his homie, dude. He's like, bro, I know a spot. He's like, do you? He's like, yeah, I'll hook you up. It's here, here, here. And he's like, I've never been caught.
Well, and I always wonder in cases like this, like, you can easily be like a homie of the person or, have a second killer, or you can be a copycat killer.
Ooh.
And so I wonder, like, in the Zodiac Killer
Some
episode,
Scream type of thing?
Yeah, well, in the Zodiac Killer episode, we talked about this is... What if the Zodiac Killer was never real? It was just one murder, and then people just kept doing copycats to, like, get away with murder. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, yeah,
like,
yeah. You could be...
Like, you could do that kind of stuff all the time. Anyways, so on November 29th, 2011, police announced that they believed one person to be responsible for all 10 murders, and that the perpetrator is almost certainly from Long Island. The single killer theory stems from a common characteristics between the condition of all the remains and forensic evidence related to the bodies. That's what they put out. So in June 2011, Suffolk County Police announced a $25,000 reward for information leading to an arrest in the Long Island murders. Shannon Gilbert's remains were located in Oak Beach in December 2011, 19 months after her disappearance. The cause of her death is contested. In June 2024, which is just a few months ago, and these have been going on for, 20 years now?
Yeah.
Rex Heuermann was charged with the 1993 murder of Sandra Costilla, whose case had not previously been linked to the Gilgo Beach murders. With this advent, the timeline of the case reached back to the early 90s, much further than previously thought by police. So that really threw things off, right? So the whole case is just, like... That's all crazy. And this isn't even all of it, guys. I'm going to go back to the timeline in 1993 so that you guys can kind of see how far all this stuff really is apart from each other. So let me click over here. So the timeline starts, like I just said, back in 1993. So November 20th, 1993, 2 hunters discovered the body of Sandra Costilla, who was 28, in a wooded area of North Sea. That's it, right? They just identify a body. And it took them... They didn't know who it was, right? Some hunters are just out having a good time. And then April 20th, 1996, partial remains of Karen Vergata are discovered on Fire Island. And this is just another beach right off of Long Island. Her remains, unknown to investigators until just 2 years ago, Jesus. They didn't know who it was. When new DNA analysis helped them make a discovery... And keep, because the last time this girl was in contact with her family was literally back in 1996, dude. She was also a sex worker when she vanished.
Yeah. So, I mean, the common thing is that they're either, they're sex workers, escorts, things like that. Yeah. And they're putting, and it's people that put themselves, like, on the internet and do it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. They were all on Craigslist. So then June 28th, 1997, that's when Peaches was found. That's the girl who... Her identity still remains unknown, but she had the Peaches tattoo. So they call her Peaches throughout all the paperwork. That was back in 97. So then in 2000, that's when the partial skeletal remains of Valerie Mack, who had been working as an escort in Philadelphia, were found in Manorville, New York. She was last seen in the spring or summer that year from her family. Then in July 2003, more partial skeleton remains, but these ones are of Jessica Taylor. They're discovered in Manorville as well. She was 20 when she vanished, and she was working as an escort in New York City. Then in 2007, that's when Maureen was found. And then we got 2009, that's when Melissa was found. Another, just 7 days later, a man began using Bartholomew's mobile phone to make taunting phone calls to her relatives. This is what you were talking about earlier, right?
Yeah. The thing is, right there it says, because I looked this up.
Yeah.
Right there it says using her phone. All over is saying that he was using like a burner phone. And the thing is, when they traced the burner phone like back to, it was literally like some suburb in Long Island. It was like some suburb of Long Island, 30 minutes from Gilgo Beach. So they're saying, it's giving it away that it was obviously someone in the area.
Yeah.
And just apart from that, he didn't just call, like, let's say, he didn't just call Bartholomew's. He called Bartholomew's sister, but apart from that, he went and called her sister. Like, let's say he called her auntie, he called her grandma, and then he went on to, like, let's say Shannon's relatives, not even her parents, and being like, oh, is she okay? Is she good? Like, I can find her. Like, her body's rotten, and I can see her every day. Like, taunting them like that.
Yeah, he was, and he even at one point, like, he literally told them, like, oh, she's dead, but I can see her. You can't.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And that was, he called, so remember he started the phone calls July 17th. He made another phone call July 23rd, August 5th, August 19th, and August 26th. So, like, he was waiting weeks in between the calls, too. Right? Like, a couple days, weeks. So then, May 1st, 2010, Shannon Gilbert disappears. So it just continues. And then she made the 911 call. She tells the dispatcher people are after her, but she can also be heard refusing offers of help in the background. So, like earlier, you said there's multiple voices. Her pimp, the client, and his neighbor all told police that she appeared disoriented and then ran off into the night on her own. So was the pimp involved because he didn't want to be prosecuted, or, like, what do you think?
Or did she just take a little too much and they just told her to leave?
Yeah, it's possible that she just got kind of strung out or something,
Yeah.
Then, June 6, 2010, Megan Waterman is last seen at a hotel, or motel, I'm sorry. Then Amber Costello, in September 2010, is last seen leaving her home to meet a sex worker client, Then, December 11, 2010, that's when the dog discovers Melissa. Then, 2 days later, they find the bodies of Costello and Barnes and Waterman. Like, so it just continues and continues. Well, then, let's go on to the next year. So, March 2011, this is when some of Jessica Taylor's remains are discovered, right? April 2011, Valerie Mack. So, we've already kind of gone over this. But, let's talk a little bit about where does Heuermann come into play, right? Because at this point, like, yeah, we found all these remains, but they have no idea. They're just asking. There was 7,000 tips given. Did you know that? I was reading an article and it said, like, when they were asking for tips and up until, like, now, there was about 7,000 different tips made.
So you're telling me they just didn't do anything about it? They knew who this guy was?
I don't think they necessarily said, oh, it was this guy, but they gave, like, description of what he looked like or whatever. And then just kind of went from there.
That's crazy. That's crazy to think that they would, let's say, I have a missing daughter, I have a missing girl, they're all about the same build, same age, more or less, and they all go missing relatively maybe a year or maybe months apart from each other, and there's suspects here and there, and the cops are basically not doing anything about it besides finding these remains. Exactly.
So back in 2011 is where, like, Gilbert's skeletal remains, back in December 2011, where Gilbert's skeletal remains are discovered. And then you don't really hear anything until January 2022 after that, Jesus. So January 2022 comes around, and this is when Suffolk County District Attorney decides, okay, well, I'm going to do a new task force to investigate these killings. So then July 13th, 2023, investigators decide, let's arrest Heuermann and charge him with murdering Costello, Waterman, and Bartholomew. I don't know how to say her last name. It's weird. They say they also believed that he killed Barnes, but they didn't initially charge him with Barnes, right? The key evidence in the case is the mobile phone location data suggesting that Heuermann and the women were in the same places at the same times. And traces of DNA evidence was found on the remains. So then, this is just back to this year, you guys. January 6, 2024, Heuermann was charged with the death of Barnes. Prosecutors say hair was found with her corpse, and it was genetically similar to DNA samples from Heuermann's wife. Yeah. So, there was a lot of claims that Heuermann's ex-wife was helping him with this because it was happening when they were, like, still married. It has been, like, she came out and was like, I had nothing to do with it, blah, 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 at this point. But, I mean, who's going to be like, you caught me?
Yeah, right.
So, I don't know.
I mean, honestly, if you're not guilty, the truth speaks for itself. But if you are guilty, you always tend to get that light off yourself, no?
Yeah.
Okay, so literally what you just said, Miranda, it correlates to what what I found was that Rex and his wife were known to like. Oh, okay. So they were swingers, right? And allegedly, and they would go to a specific club that was known for everybody, and there was a swinger, and there was even a rule where you walked in with you couldn't leave with the person you walked in with.
Damn, dude.
So it was straight up like that, and
imagine you don't find someone you like though.
And right, ugh, I have to go home with her. This lady, obviously knew a lot of the people in there in the club, and I guess she knew about like the investigation and stuff. She knew stuff was going on in the background. Like, the wife.
Okay.
You know, because obviously they would, every time they'd find a body, they'd be like on TV, you know, we found the remains of this, and that. She said that in the club there was known investigators, there was known cops. That would go in there, and like, how would she know all that? How would she know, like, you know, oh, I saw him on TV, that's officer this, and that, unless you were always paranoid about someone looking for you or things you've done.
That is true. That is true, dude. Well, and when I was reading about it, it wasn't about the swinger thing, but, like, trying to make his wife seem innocent. You know, people are like, okay, well, you spend a lot of time with your husband or your wife or, you know, people you live with, so their DNA or their hair can be on your clothes, too, and then you just leave them there if you're the murderer. Which, okay, I guess that's also possible, right? Mm-hmm. So we can give her the benefit of the doubt, but there's no evidence against her besides that there was his wife's DNA on Barnes's clothes. So, I don't know. But, flashback to a couple months ago, late April 2024, police conduct a new multi-day search of a wooded area in Manorville where Taylor and Mac's remains were discovered more than a decade earlier. They also perform a new search of the spot where Costilla's body was discovered in 1993. Doesn't say what happened, guys, so this might all be being saved for the trial. I don't know. May 2024, investigators launched a new search of his house. It lasted a whole week. So now that I say that, let's kind of talk about the evidence that they have on him, right? Because, yeah, we told you all about the murders, but where does Heuermann actually come into play besides his wife's DNA was found? But how did they find Heuermann in the first place? So, I don't know if it was from an initial tip or if it was just DNA evidence or what it was that initially brought him into it all. But back in 2023, January 2023, that's when there was like an actual big break in the case because the investigators took a swab from leftover pizza crust that Heuermann had thrown in the trash outside of his office.
Ooh, they were literally hunting this guy, dude.
Well, and you can take DNA evidence or evidence from like a trash can if it's outside or whatever. I only know that because I've been watching The Rookie a lot lately, and they'll do that. They'll like, if they think someone's guilty, like, and you can't get a warrant, they'll wait outside and be like, oh, look, he just threw his cup away.
Isn't that what private investigators do? They just like run through your trash?
They can, and it's totally legal.
Isn't that crazy? What if, okay, dude, like, see, in parents' house, they have a garbage can, like, but not a normal
like
can.
A dumpster, right?
They have a dumpster, right? So you're telling me any random can just go in there and just look through it if they wanted to?
I think yours is in, like, the backyard, right?
No, it's in the front yard.
Oh, it is? I mean, like, if it's...
It's not, like, how do I say? It's literally in front of my window. Like, we'll say that, right?
I'm not sure if they can go onto the property line to do it. Like, it's... I don't know the exact law on it. I know they can go through your trash, but, like, see...
I just know why. Because, let's say, when you put your trash cans on the sidewalk, it becomes public property.
So they can go through it there, but I don't know if they can come onto your property. That would be different. But here they got it from his office, right?
Yeah.
So they go in through the trash at his office. They take a piece of pizza crust that they know he had bitten out of, and
because he's a big guy, obviously.
Yeah, the DNA evidence linked him to hair that was found on one of the burlap sacks where Waterman's remains are found. Yeah. So then in the search of his house, this is where things get crazy. Because now I'm going to talk about, like, I don't know, let's just say the blueprint.
Yeah.
We're going to call it like a blueprint, right? So in his house, they found 350 electronic devices, Jesus. Included in those 350 devices were 15 cameras, 27 computers, 17 tablets, 80 different hard drives, 46 cell phones, 42 USB devices, and 647 floppy disks. I know that's not part of the 350 electronic devices, but it also is.
It's like in total, it's only about 3 gigabytes.
But like they had all kinds of stuff. In one of those hard drives, they found a list that he had deleted, but it's the FBI, so they can recover deleted stuff, right? So it was on there. He deleted it. They got it back. It showed a list of what he called potential problems. I wrote them down. He had on the list DNA, tire marks, bloodstains, fingerprints, witnesses, trace evidence of supplies, trace source of where he got his supplies. What if he left his shoe prints, misleads, police stop, what if his truck gets stuck, fingerprints in the gloves, plastic bags matched to box, hairs and fibers. He had that all on his list. Then he had a list of supplies that he needed, which included boots, acid, police scanner, rope/cord, saws and cutting tools, hair nets, photo film, burn can, foam drain cleaner, body wash, tarps, drop clothes, medical gloves, bags and tape, large electrical clips, and ratchet straps. It also on the list had dump sites and possible targets that he was thinking about. It also had pre- and post-event planning, and he had a list of things to remember. So on his list, he had get sleep before the hunt, hit harder, and consider to hit the face or neck next time instead. So he had next time written on there. So, like, he was doing after his kills, he was going on there and writing, next time I should do this.
So not just was he murdering these people, right?
They were pre-planned.
They were pre-planned, and he was trying to be calculated to the T. Like, I gotta hit him right here. If I hit him right here, it's gonna kill him. Less of a mess, stuff like that.
They were also saying that, like, the killer that he related to most is the BTK killer. Because he had documents of stuff like this, too. Yeah. That were found where he would, like, premeditate and pre-plan and, like, have everything down to a T. And they say that they're going to use in the case, like in the case against him in court, in the trial, they're going to say, well, he was an architect, so he likes to be very precise and plan things down to a T when he was an architect, so he did that with his killings, too. He also had on there to control the amount of air in and out of wherever he was to make sure that the noise was controlled a bit more. He said use heavier rope for the neck because light rope breaks under the pressure or under the stress of being tightened. He wrote that on the list. He also had like a recon report of where video cameras were and like surveillance cameras were and stuff of the places he was going. And in his apartment, they found like, you remember the show Mindhunter on Netflix? Like the FBI guy who wrote the book Mindhunter and the show is based on? He had his books in his apartment or in his house because he was studying the way they profile people and the things he could do to get away with murder.
Well, I mean, obviously this guy was smart, right? An architect?
Yes.
He, calculated, controlled. And apart from that, he was studying the FBI's ways, maybe even the CIA's ways, just so he wouldn't get caught.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Bro, like, I wish these super geniuses, they would use their smartness for good instead of just murdering people.
I know, it makes no sense.
Because imagine this guy, like, being like
the good guy.
Like I said, he's an architect, but an archaeologist. He would literally know, like, hey, if we calculate right, the bones are right here. Mm-hmm. But no, yeah, he is. He's like, if I calculate this right, I'm going to bury this body where no one will find it. Like, useless.
Yeah, exactly. A waste of fucking space. Well, and so now we just have to wait because in his, like, pre-trial stuff, because he's already obviously, like, gone to court to prove, like, he hasn't gone to trial yet, but he's had to go into court. And he pleaded not guilty. His lawyer is now trying to, like, his lawyer's like, he didn't do it. We're going to split this up. And so the lawyer's trying to split the cases up into, like, separate cases and get, like, the case of the two other girls, not the Gilgo 4, but the other ones.
Yeah.
He's trying to get them separated into a different case. And, like, I don't know. The lawyers is going above and beyond for this guy. And we won't really know what happens up until October of this year when trial happens. So let's just hope that this guy gets caught because he's obviously guilty. People who aren't guilty, like, don't have murder plans on their computer and DNA evidence against them.
And if he wasn't guilty, obviously none of this would be going on, so.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, you guys tell us what you think.
If you're listening to us on Spotify, make sure to download the episode. And if you're listening to us on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe.
And we out.
Yeehaw, brother.